Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be filming what I read in May and June. As you can probably tell, I now have a bookshelf behind me, which is so exciting. I've wanted a bookcase for so long. I finally have one and she is gorgeous. If anyone wants to see a bookshelf tour, I keep saying shelf. If anyone wants to see a bookcase tour, please do let me know in the comments because I would love to film one. Obviously it is not complete. This isn't all the books that I own in any way. I think these are my favourite videos to film. I love filming what I read across a certain period of time. However, I am very disappointed in myself because I have read 12 books across May and June. So in total of those 2 months. And only 7 of which are physical books. I've read 7 physical books in 2 months. I'm not reading as fast as I would like. I wish I was one of those people that could devour like a 300-page book in like 2 days. And realistically, I could. I think I honestly need to dedicate more hours in the day to reading. I'm so annoying because I am that person that's like, right, I have a couple hours, let's sit down and read, and I pick up my phone or I turn YouTube on and I'm like, why am I not reading? Anyway, back to the main point of this video. For a little breakdown, I read 6 books in May, 6 books in June. Very balanced, very nice. May was a good reading month for me. I did read quite a few short stories. It actually wasn't great, actually, in the aspect that I didn't get a big sum of books finished. My main goal for this year is to try and reduce my TBR, my physical TBR, as much as I physically can, especially the series I want to buy. I want to buy the Boys of Tommen series. I want to buy the Brutal Prince series. Like my books to door cart, we don't talk about her, but at least it's in the cart and not on my shelves. Do you know what I mean? I cannot get my physical TBR down and it's driving me crazy. So if anyone has any suggestions, June, again, 6 books. This was more physical books, but I started off the month so bad that it was really hard and it put me almost in a slump. We are going to start with May's reads. The first book I read in May was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Now this was my first Emily Henry book that I read. I've actually read 2 Emily Henry books since then, including this one, but I bought this because I seen it in the works and I was like, oh, a new Emily Henry book, and I have heard so much about her. All the booktubers I watch, every book talker rants and raves about Emily Henry, I feel like, and I was like, right, I've had enough. I need to see what the hype is about. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of get it. The shocking thing is that I bought this and then I was seeing all the reviews that people were giving, and all the like bigger book talkers and booktubers weren't giving a starred review on this. They were just saying they'd read it. Everyone else was like, this isn't her best work, this isn't great at all, I did not enjoy this. And I'm like, this is my first Emily Henry book and it's one that no one likes. Actually, I read this and really enjoyed it. So I rated this 3.5 stars. Now I can understand, I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it. I don't think this is a spoiler, but if you genuinely don't want to know anything about this book, other than that I rated it 3.5 stars, maybe skip ahead to the next book. I think the reason why people were a bit more unsure and the reason why this book is a bit less liked is because the romance is definitely more subtle, more subdued. It's not as loud and screamy and like jukebox outside of your window dramatic as all the other kind of like rom-coms that I think she does and that a lot of other authors do. It's very quiet, very slow. It kind of happens almost like in real life, like naturally. Like you expect the best, you expect all the big gestures and everything else when you read a romance. So I think that's maybe why people didn't love it as much. It did feel quite kind of mundane, felt almost like slice of life vibes in terms of we were kind of following her in the day-to-day between interviewing this woman, and it felt like very like calm and relaxed. I think this would be, if anything, a good like palatable read, if all good for just something if you want more of a chilled vibe out of a book. And I'm actually glad that I read it first because I like having a big thing for me is reading a romance that also has that kind of that added plot on the side. So the romance between 2 people, but they're competing to write this biography for this celebrity. I didn't mind this book at all. I actually quite enjoyed it, and yeah. The next book we have I read on Kindle. It was a short story called The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. Now, this is book 1 in a 6-book series called the Improbable Meet Cute series. So it's basically about sort of like slightly eccentric meet cutes between our characters. So it's book 1. I think they were both students, and one messaged the other on Valentine's Day by accident, and it just kind of became this little joke between strangers where every Valentine's Day they would email each other and kind of like update each other, and obviously it got deeper and they learned more about each other's lives. And then it got to a point where they were like, okay, I actually feel a certain way towards this stranger through the internet, maybe we should meet. And it's basically just the cutest little book, and it was perfect, and I wish it was longer because the way it was written, it was just so sweet. And although it was, I don't even know how many pages, like 50, 60 pages, I was so invested, and I did rate it 5 stars. It was so good, like so insanely good. I absolutely adored it. Next we have Eve of Man by Giovanni and Tom Fletcher. I don't think I've ever read a book written by 2 authors, but you couldn't tell that it was written by 2 people at all. Now, this was one of those books that was sat on my TBR for a while, and I kept looking at it and I was intrigued, but not enough so to pick it up, or I wanted to read other books first. But I finally read it and I rated it 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed this. I read the first 140 pages in one afternoon, which is insane for me. And that was the point that I realised, okay, I can actually read quite a bit in the afternoon if I dedicate the time to it. It had a really great start. It was really intriguing. But then I got to the middle, and I don't know if it's me or the books I'm reading, but recently I had this with the reappearance of Rachel Price. I just get to the middle and I'm like, where's the end? Like, this slog of like daily crap that no one wants to read about, and I want to get to the end. I want to find out what's happening now. I've had the beginning and the cutesy world building and learning about the characters. Now I want to read the end. But this was really good. The romance was so sweet, and the actual plot itself was really good. The only thing that affected it alongside the middle was that I think it's taken heavy inspiration from Divergent. Things like Divergent, Hunger Games, I just feel like they're so overdone now, so overused. I'm a big reader, I've read lots of books, and I want to read something that's different and unique. That's the only thing that kind of takes stars off for me. The end was quite fast paced, but the fact that it related so much to Divergent just took stars off for me. I really liked the premise, and I'm glad I've read it. At the end I was like, I kind of am intrigued to read the second one, but now that I've had some time away from it, I'm like, you know what, I'm fine. I don't need to read it. I did really enjoy this one and I would recommend it. Such a conflicting review. Going back to the short stories on Kindle, I read Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. Yes, by Abby Jimenez. And this one wasn't nowhere near as good as the first one, but it was good. The meet cute in this one is they leave notes on each other's windshield, so I don't know how he left the note on her windshield, but it ended up going back and forth. It was good, nothing to write home about, cute little short story. Moving on. Now, I did like the writing style with Worst Wingman Ever, and I hadn't read any other Abby Jimenez books before. I read another one by her called The Full Risk. This was my next read in May, and this one I rated 4 star. I also really enjoyed the writing in this one. I liked the chemistry between not just the relationships, like the romantic relationships, but also between the friendships. I think a story that can navigate and have a really good combination of both just really makes for a good story. And it's actually made me want to read some of her longer books, because obviously Abby Jimenez is quite well known and I'd never really read anything by her before. So I was like, okay, I could see myself reading some of her longer books. This short story was a little bit longer than the other ones. This one was 80 pages. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute. Not 5-star energy for me, at least not yet, but they are very good, and I do see why she is very popular. And finally for May, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. My second Emily Henry book of that month. This one has been on my TBR for ages, and I've been meaning to read it, and I've been too scared and too put off, and everyone and their mother says out of all the Emily Henry books they've read, this is always the one they like favourite the most. I feel so controversial saying this, but I rated this 3.5 stars, which I think is pretty generous for me, considering how I felt about it. Now, the key here that we need to remember in terms of judging me for my review of this is that I am not a sad book reader. I do not like sad books of any kind, romance or otherwise. When I went into this one and there's the cheating trope in it, there's cheating in it, immediately brought it down for me. This was so intense emotionally, and it was so real and so full of heartache. The cover screams like, oh, cutesy, like, oh, beach read, like we've got 2 authors, 1 holiday, a rom-com waiting to happen. Where was the com? Honestly, I kind of want to go in and rate it lower, but the reason why I gave it 3.5 was his speech at the end was great. It was very sweet, very much a romance sort of vibe. I think I was just a bit blindsided. I think it just caught me off guard. If any of her other books are like that, I am really sorry, but I am not interested in reading them. We are now moving into June. So that was my 6 books for May. For June has not been fun for me. June has not been fun. We started with Legendborn. Again, I feel like I'm going to be hated. I really hope this is not the first video of mine that you're watching, because you're going to hate me. I quite frankly hate myself a little bit. Anyways, I started this book and it felt very promising. For the first 100 pages, I thought it was going to be 5-star. It was fantasy. I felt like romance was the subplot. It was exactly what I was in the mood for and what I was craving. But then for the following 200 pages, I was a bit like, and I'm not gonna lie, I was bored. I was really, really bored. I feel like the world building, the information that's constantly thrown in your face about, because there's a whole other language in here, like a whole other language, and I was so not caught up, and I was just so confused, and the world building was just so intense, and I just felt like I was constantly being thrown information and it just wasn't going in because there was so much of it, and it just became so bogged down and boring. I felt like I was reading a dictionary. I felt like I'd been reading it for weeks and I really did want a DNF, but this was actually, side note, one of the books my boyfriend chose for me to read in June to get it finished by the end of June. He chose 3 books for me. If I finished all 3, he said he'd take me out for Wagamama and Boba, which is my absolute freaking favourite thing. So I was like, I have to get this done. I have to. But 500 pages of something you're not enjoying. Alas, the last 150 pages were actually quite epic, and again, with the first 100 pages and the last 150 really did kind of solidify the big fantasy epic adventure that I wanted. I personally wanted to leave this unrated, but because of the hype around it, it feels so wrong to rate it so poorly. I rated it 2 stars. I'm really sorry. The first star is for the first 100 pages, the second star is for the ending, but that, like, what is it, 300 pages in the centre just really, I'm sorry, it just did not do it for me. We then have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, another Abby Jimenez book. I've been on a real romance kick apparently this last 2 months. I listened to this as an audiobook on Spotify, and it was one of those books that I genuinely have been reading for about 2 to 3 months because it's one of those things that I put it on like a podcast in the background of when I'm doing stuff. So if I'm like, I don't want to listen to music, but I'm either cleaning, or a big one for me has been in the shower. When I have a hair shower and I'm in there for like a good, or I'm shaving or something and I'm in there for like a good 45 minutes, I like to have like an audiobook playing in the background just for some background noise and something to listen to. I'm not gonna lie, it got to a point where I'd be really excited to have like a long hair shower or shaving shower and listen to this audiobook because I did really enjoy it. Again, Abby Jimenez, she definitely does include real life issues in her books, but she does it in such, I don't want to say wholesome, but in such a full rounded way alongside the romance that it just deepens the romance, because it's like, okay, well, you're going through these hardships and these hard things in your separate lives or in your life together as a couple, and it just like makes it so much more sweeter because of that real life element. And I just really enjoyed it to the point where I rated it 3-star, but I had to go back and change it to 4-star because even now I still think about them. And when I go to get into the shower, I'm like, oh, I'd love to listen to it right now. The next book we have is The Club. Another disappointing read. Been on the TBR for a handsome amount of time. And it's one of those books where I haven't seen anyone write anything about it, any reviews or anything. I don't think there's an awful lot of reviews on Goodreads. The biggest thing for me with this book and with any other book really when reading it is the writing itself. If the writing is good, the characters, their morals, the plot a little bit, I'm not too bothered about. So long as there's good writing and the author itself, theirself is a good writer, generally I'll be fine throughout a book. The writing in this, I was so confused. I think we follow 3 to 4 different character povs. At one point I was like, who is that? I never knew if we were in the present or in the past. It was just basically a dodgy businessman who made an island, who made a company, who made a business, exploiting celebrities. And that was it, really. I rated it 2 stars as well. After that, I was like, right, the 2 physical books I've read were both 2-star. I need something good. So I was like, I need a thriller. Who do you look for when you think thriller? Who first comes to mind when you think thriller? If you're thinking Freida McFadden, you would be correct. I read One by One by Freida McFadden, and oh my gosh, girl! I always had said I wanted The Inmate to be the first book by Freida McFadden that I read, because I haven't read a Freida McFadden book before. Very new author, exciting couple months for me. But I seen this one and I seen the length of this, and this was also on my radar, and oh my gosh. So I finished The Club, and then that same evening I was like, right, I need something good. And something about a short book just makes it so much more appealing. And I just knew in my heart a short thriller is the way to go. I read the first 20 pages of it that evening, but I was led in bed and I was like, yeah, I'm too tired, I'm going to sleep. I think I finished this in a day and a half. I read the last 160 pages in one afternoon. I could not put it down. I couldn't put it down. It was so good. I think what also really helped is that I obviously haven't read a Freida McFadden book before, and I didn't know where she was going to take the ending. I didn't know where the plot twist was going to go. There was people I was guessing who could be the murderer throughout the book. The person I thought it was going to be, but I was like, no, I wrote it off in my mind. I was like, no, that's too obvious, was the person. But it wasn't done bad. It wasn't done poorly at all. And the ending, I genuinely got goosebumps, and I was like, what? I did not see that coming. And the way it was written and the perspective we were in, the main character perspective we were in, I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was always just like, oh my god, I'm so scared for them. The end was just so completely unhinged, and I absolutely loved it. The epilogue was something else. I was like, oh my god, that is so insane. I love it. Such a great start to reading Freida McFadden. I could recommend this to anybody, even if you aren't a thriller reader, even if you aren't a reader, I'd be like, read this book. Then we have more recent reads for me, and by recent I mean I finished this next book today. Read this one on Kindle as well. I then read Staged by Elle Cosimano. I don't know how you say her last name, I do apologise. This was another short story, and it was about 2 people who were flipping a house, ready for it to go on the market and be sold. It was an old Victorian property that they needed to put a bit more effort into flipping because of the condition of it. And then they find a dead body in there and have to go from being flippers to being detectives, essentially. Honestly, it was fine. I think if it was longer, I definitely would have rated it less. Kind of unbothered by it. 3-star. It was okay. And finally, we have Red Queen, because I am listening to what I want to read and reading fantasy. Would you believe? This is obviously dystopian fantasy. I've heard so many things about this series. I have the rest of it just here. I was scared. I've seen a little spoiler on TikTok, and by little spoiler I mean it almost spoiled the whole book for me. That kind of made me think, oh, I know the ending, so what's the point of me reading it? But now I'm a bit unsure of who this big betrayal is by. As you can tell by the bookmark, I haven't finished it yet. I have 150 pages left. I am going to insert a clip now with my final review, but I am very, very excited to read the last 150 pages. My prediction for what I'm going to rate it is I reckon I'm going to rate it 4 stars. Okay, I finished Red Queen and I felt the last 150 pages were quite heavy in terms of information and lots of stuff coming out, and the plot just kept changing and it was kind of struggled to keep up. But I mean, overall, I did find it a good book and I did actually enjoy it, and I found that I took a break in between Red Queen and Glass Sword, which is the second one, and I was like, okay, I really want to get into Glass Sword now. So it was actually quite good and I would recommend it, and I'm rating it 3.5 stars. So just about what I said, but just an extra half star off, just because while it was good, it wasn't blow me out of the park incredible. And yeah, that is all the books that I read in May and June. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I had a great time making it. Please like and subscribe before you leave. If you have any comments you want to add, anything you'd like me to film maybe, please leave it in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your opinions and what you think I should do next. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.